Have you ever wondered where smiles come from? Not the genuine happy ones, but the ones we put on to get through the day? The polite nods, the forced grins, the empty laughs. What if I told you they were all being collected? That's what Courage, our little pink dog, was about to discover. His latest adventure didn't start with a spooky monster or a creepy alien, but with something far more unsettling, a strange, rhythmic humming coming from deep beneath the nowhere farmhouse. It was a sound that vibrated through the floorboards, a low thrum that you could feel in your teeth. Muriel and Eustace didn't seem to notice it, but Courage, with his oversized ears and even bigger sense of dread, couldn't ignore it. He followed the sound, his paws padding nervously across the dusty cellar floor until he found a loose section of the wall. With a whimper and a push, the bricks gave way, revealing a dark, spiraling staircase leading down, down, down into the earth. The air grew thick and smelled of ozone and something sickly sweet, like burnt sugar. The humming grew louder, a mechanical heartbeat pulling him deeper. Finally, the staircase opened into a vast, cavernous space. It was a factory, but like none he had ever seen. Towering structures of brass and copper spun with terrifying speed, gears the size of houses meshing together in a deafening symphony of clanks and whirs. Pistons hammered, steam hissed, and everywhere, absolutely everywhere, were faces. They were plastered on screens, etched into the metal, projected onto the walls. Countless faces, all frozen in a single expression, a wide, toothy, unwavering smile. Some were familiar. The news anchor from the TV, the mailman, even that creepy barber, Freaky Fred. Others were strangers from all over the world, but their smiles were all the same, vacant and unnervingly perfect. Courage felt a shiver run down his spine. This wasn't a place of joy. It was a museum of stolen happiness. From behind a colossal gear, a figure emerged. He was tall, ramrod straight, and dressed in a perfectly pressed but utterly drab grey uniform. His face was a mask of stern indifference. It was the boring soldier, a man so dedicated to order and efficiency that he seemed to have forgotten how to feel anything at all. He marched towards Courage, his boots clicking with relentless precision on the metal floor. "Welcome to the Global Happiness Extraction and Repurposing Initiative," he announced, his voice as flat and monotonous as the factory's hum. Or, as I like to call it, the Smile Factory. He gestured with a gloved hand at the dizzying machinery. "A marvel of modern engineering, wouldn't you agree? We harvest the most potent renewable energy source known to man, laughter." Courage whimpered, pointing a trembling paw at the smiling faces. The soldier chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Oh, those mere byproducts. We collect smiles, yes, but it is the laughter, the raw, explosive burst of joy that truly powers my creation." He led Courage to a central platform overlooking the entire factory. Below them, a vast army was being assembled. Thousands upon thousands of toy soldiers, identical to the boring soldier himself, stood in perfect formation, their plastic bodies gleaming under the factory lights. They were being built piece by piece on an endless conveyor belt. "My dream," the soldier said, a flicker of something almost like passion in his eyes. "An army that runs on pure positivity, an army that can bring order and discipline to this messy, emotional world, and it's all powered by happiness." He pointed to a massive, glowing core at the heart of the factory, tubes and wires snaked out from it, pulsing with a bright golden light. Every chuckle, every giggle, every belly laugh from every corner of the globe is siphoned here, converted into clean, efficient energy. Courage was horrified. All the world's joy was being stolen to build this army of soulless toys. He had to stop it. He looked around frantically. His eyes landed on a massive power conduit, a thick bundle of cables leading directly into the central core. At the base was a single large red lever marked Main Power Disconnect. It was his only chance. With a yelp of determination, Courage dodged the soldier's attempt to grab him and sprinted for the lever. He leaped, his small body straining, and grabbed onto the handle. He pulled with all his might, grunting and groaning as the heavy switch resisted. The boring soldier marched calmly towards him. Futility is the cornerstone of chaos, little dog. You cannot stop progress. But with one final desperate heave, Courage succeeded. The lever clicked down with a deafening thud. A wave of silence washed over the factory as the giant gears ground to a halt. The pistons fell silent. The clanking stopped. The humming ceased. Courage looked up, expecting darkness, expecting the factory to die. But nothing happened. The lights stayed on. The golden core continued to glow, and the screens with the grinning faces flickered, but did not go out. The boring soldier stood over him, a smug, almost smile on his face. "Oh, you thought it was that simple? That you could just pull the plug?" He laughed his dry, empty laugh again. "I said we harvest laughter. But the factory itself, it runs on something much more common, much more reliable." He gestured to the screens again. "Laughter is fleeting, it's a burst. But a smile can be held for hours. The polite smile for your boss, the strained smile at a bad joke, the I'm fine smile when you're anything but, every single forced grin, every insincere smirk, every trembling lip trying to hold back tears. They all feed this place." A cold dread washed over Courage. The soldier leaned in close, his voice a low whisper. "This factory doesn't just run on happiness, little dog. It runs on the pretense of happiness, and there is an endless supply of that in the world." He tapped a monitor, and Courage's own face appeared on the screen. It was him, just moments ago, looking at Muriel, trying to give her a reassuring smile, even though he was terrified. The smile was wobbly, uncertain, but it was there. And it was powering this nightmare. Courage looked at his reflection in the polished floor. His own fear, his own attempts to be brave for others, were part of the problem. He looked at the boring soldier, whose face remained a stoic mask. He looked at the rows upon rows of toy soldiers, waiting to march. And he understood. You can't just unplug sadness. You can't just switch off the need to pretend everything is okay. But then an idea sparked in his frantic mind. A real one, not a scream, not a clever computer solution, but a simple, heartfelt thought. The factory fed on fake smiles, on the energy of pretending. What if he gave it something real, something it couldn't process? He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and thought of Muriel. He thought of her gentle hands patting his head, her soft voice calling him a silly dog, the warmth of her lap as she rocked in her chair. He thought of a genuine, pure moment of love and comfort, and slowly a different kind of smile spread across his face. It wasn't wide or toothy, it was small, soft, and completely, utterly real. It was a smile of pure contentment. A strange sound echoed through the silent factory. It wasn't a clank or a whir, but a high-pitched whine. The golden core began to flicker violently. The boring soldier looked at the core in alarm. "What is this? What are you doing? This energy signature, it's incompatible." The screens showing the forced smiles started to crackle and short-circuit. The pure, unfiltered emotion from Courage's genuine smile was like pouring water into a gasoline engine. It was too real, too complex. It was an emotion the factory's simple binary system of fake happiness couldn't handle. The whine grew into a deafening screech. Cracks appeared in the giant brass gears. The toy soldiers began to melt, their plastic faces contorting in the heat. "No, my order, my perfection!" The boring soldier screamed, his own stoic facade finally cracking as he watched his life's work crumble around him. With a final, explosive surge of energy, the central core shattered, sending a wave of warm, gentle light through the cavern. When the light faded, the factory was in ruins. The gears were still, the screens were dark, and the toy soldiers were nothing but puddles of grey plastic. The boring soldier was gone, vanished in the blast of pure emotion. Courage, trembling but safe, stood in the silence. The sickly sweet smell was gone, replaced by the simple scent of damp earth. He had done it. He had fought a factory powered by fake smiles, not with strength, but with sincerity. He turned and padded his way back up the long spiral staircase, leaving the wreckage of the smile factory behind. When he emerged back in the cellar, he pushed the bricks back into place. Upstairs, he could hear Muriel humming in her rocking chair. He trotted into the living room and curled up at her feet, resting his head on her slippers. Muriel smiled down at him, a real, warm, loving smile. And as Courage looked up at her, he smiled back. A small, contented, and very, very real smile. He now knew, more than ever, just how powerful one of those could be. Have you ever had one of those yawns? You know the kind I'm talking about. A yawn so deep, so wide, it feels like it could swallow the entire world. It's the kind of yawn that stretches your jaw until it creaks, brings tears to your eyes, and for a split second, everything just goes quiet. Well, what if I told you that in that quiet moment, you're not just stretching your face muscles? What if you're actually opening a door to a place you really, really don't want to visit? Our story begins on a night that was anything but quiet. Picture a little pink farmhouse, standing alone in the middle of nowhere. Rain was hammering down on the roof like 1,000 tiny fists, and the wind was howling a mournful song. Inside, a little pink dog named Courage was trying his best to be, well, courageous. But the thunder was making it very difficult. Each clap sounded like a giant was stomping around outside, and with every flash of lightning, the world outside the window turned into a stark, terrifying photograph. Courage was curled up in his favorite rocking chair, trying to ignore the storm by focusing on his owner, Muriel. She was knitting, her needles clicking together in a soothing, rhythmic pattern. Her husband, Eustace, was, well, he was being Eustace. He was sitting in his own chair, wearing his green monster mask, and every so often he'd jump out with a loud "ooga booga booga" just to see Courage yelp and leap into the air. It was his favorite pastime. After a particularly loud "ooga booga booga" that nearly sent Courage through the ceiling, the little dog felt it coming, that irresistible, unstoppable urge. His eyes started to water, his chest expanded, and his jaw began to drop. It was the yawn to end all yawns, a deep, cavernous chasm of a yawn. He opened his mouth so wide you could probably see his tonsils, his little pink tongue curled up at the back of his throat. And right at that exact moment, at the absolute peak of his yawn, a jagged bolt of lightning ripped across the sky. It wasn't just a flash. This one seemed to have a purpose. It struck the ground right in front of the farmhouse, illuminating the yard with an eerie, otherworldly glow. At the same instant, Courage's yawn snapped shut with a click. For a moment, everything was silent. Even the storm seemed to hold its breath. Then, the strangeness began. Where the lightning had struck, the very air started to shimmer and warp, like heat rising from asphalt on a summer day. But this was no summer day. The shimmering patch of air grew, swirling into a vortex of pale, milky light. It looked like a giant, ghostly mouth opening in the middle of their yard. Courage's eyes went wide. He knew with a certainty that chilled him to his core that his yawn had done something terrible. He hadn't just stretched his jaw, he had torn a hole in reality. From the swirling portal, a figure began to emerge. It was tall and unnervingly thin, dressed in a tattered grey uniform that looked like it had been through a dozen wars. Its face was long and gaunt, with eyes that held no spark, no life, just a profound, soul-crushing boredom. It carried a rusty rifle and moved with a slow, shuffling gait, as if the very act of walking was an immense chore. This was a soldier from the sleepy world, the land of eternal tedium. The soldier stepped onto the wet grass, looked around with utter disinterest, and then his lifeless eyes landed on the farmhouse. He raised a hand, not in a wave, but in a slow, tired gesture. And then another soldier shuffled out of the portal, and another, and another. Soon, an entire army of these boring soldiers was marching out of the glowing gateway, their boots making no sound on the muddy ground. They moved in perfect, monotonous synchrony, a silent, grey tide flooding the yard. The lead soldier, the first one through, shuffled his way to the front porch. He peered through the screen door, his dull gaze falling on the terrified little dog cowering inside. He didn't look menacing or angry. He just looked bored. He raised his hand and let it drop limply against the door. A dry, rasping voice, the sound of dust and forgotten things, drifted through the screen. "Thanks for the portal," he said, his voice flat and devoid of any emotion. "This place looks slightly less boring than the last. We'll take it." Courage's mind was racing. This was all his fault. His yawn, that giant, world-breaking yawn. He had to fix this. He had to close the gate. With a surge of adrenaline that momentarily banished his fear, Courage shot across the living room and burst through the front door, slamming it shut behind him. He ignored the shuffling army and sprinted towards the shimmering portal in the yard. He didn't know how, but he knew what he had to do. He reached the edge of the swirling light and with all his might grabbed the two sides of the shimmering tear in reality. It felt like trying to grab smoke and fog at the same time, but he pulled. He strained every muscle in his little pink body, his paws digging into the mud for leverage. He pulled the edges of the portal together like he was closing a giant glowing curtain. The light fought against him, a low humming sound filling the air, but Courage wouldn't let go. Slowly, painstakingly, the gate began to shrink. The boring soldiers, seeing their entrance disappearing, turned with a collective, lethargic sigh and began shuffling back towards it. They moved without panic, as if being sent back was just as tedious as arriving. The portal narrowed to a slit, then to a sliver of light. With one final, desperate heave, Courage slammed the gate shut. The light vanished. The humming stopped. The yard was empty. The storm raged on as if nothing had happened. Panting, covered in mud, Courage stood there for a second, a wave of relief washing over him. He did it. He saved his home. But his relief was short-lived. As he turned to go back inside, he saw it. Sticking through the now invisible seam in reality, where the portal had been, was a hand. A skeletal grey hand, its long, bony fingers wrapped tightly around the handle of a saw. But this was no ordinary saw. The blade wasn't made of metal. It was carved from a single long yellowed piece of bone, its teeth sharp and jagged. The hand, belonging to a soldier who didn't make it back in time, began to move. The bone saw rasped against the fabric of space-time, a horrifying scraping sound. It was trying to saw its way back through, trying to reopen the gate. Courage's heart pounded against his ribs. He had closed the door, but he hadn't locked it. And now, something from the other side was trying to pick the lock with a saw made of bone. He let out a scream that was lost in the sound of the thunder. He ran back to the porch, scrambled inside, and slammed the door, locking it and barricading it with a chair. He peered out the window, his body trembling. The ghostly hand was still there, relentlessly sawing at nothing, the chilling scrape, 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 somehow audible over the storm. Courage knew this wasn't over. He had won the battle, but the war against the sleepy world had just begun, and it all started with a single, simple yawn. It makes you think, doesn't it? The next time you feel that deep, jaw-popping yawn coming on, maybe try to stifle it. You never know what gate you might be opening. Just wait. This episode takes the cake, or should I say, the dentures. So grab your favorite blanket, hug your dog, and let's get into it. The story kicks off on a seemingly normal morning at the Bagay farmhouse. Well, as normal as it gets. Courage is doing his usual thing, probably trying to avoid Eustace's wrath when something truly strange happens. Muriel's dentures, which she usually keeps in a glass by her bedside, suddenly spring to life. They hop out of the glass, land on the floor and start marching. But they aren't just marching, they're singing old-timey army tunes. Imagine a set of false teeth, clicking and clacking across the wooden floor, belting out a military anthem. It's the kind of image that's both hilarious and deeply unsettling, which is classic Courage territory. Courage, being the ever-vigilant protector of his home, is understandably freaked out. His eyes bug out. He lets out one of his signature screams. But his duty calls. He knows he has to figure out what's going on. So, summoning all his, well, courage, he decides to follow the marching dentures. He tiptoes behind them, trying to stay hidden, as they make their way out of the farmhouse and head straight for the barn. The tension builds with every step. What could possibly be waiting for him in there? Knowing this show, it could be anything from a giant chicken from outer space to a talking puddle. As Courage peeks into the barn, the scene that greets him is beyond anything he could have imagined. The barn is filled, from wall to wall, with thousands upon thousands of dentures. They're all lined up in perfect, neat rows, like a massive army standing at attention. There are dentures of all shapes and sizes, all polished and gleaming in the dim light of the barn. They're all completely silent, just standing there, waiting. It's a truly chilling sight. The sheer scale of it is what makes it so creepy. Where did all these teeth come from? Who do they belong to? The episode doesn't give us any easy answers, leaving our imaginations to run wild with terrifying possibilities. Just when Courage thinks it can't get any stranger, a figure emerges from the shadows. This is where we meet our villain for the episode, the boring soldier. And let me tell you, his name is a bit of an understatement. He's a tall, lanky character dressed in a drab military uniform with a permanent scowl etched on his face. He's holding a giant rusty saw, which immediately sets off alarm bells. He stomps in front of the army of teeth and shouts in a booming drill sergeant voice, "Smile inspection." His goal is to find the perfect set of teeth, and he's willing to go to extreme lengths to achieve it. He inspects the rows of dentures, rejecting them one by one for the tiniest imperfections. "Too yellow," he'll shout, or "too crooked." It's a ridiculous, almost comedic scene, but the presence of that giant saw makes it undeniably menacing. Courage watches this whole spectacle, hidden behind a haystack, his entire body trembling. The combination of the marching teeth, the massive army of dentures, and this unhinged soldier with a saw is just too much for our poor pup to handle. The boring soldier continues his frantic inspection, getting more and more frustrated with each flawed set of teeth. The atmosphere is thick with tension. Courage knows that something terrible is about to happen, but he's frozen in fear. This is a classic Courage moment. He's terrified, but you know he's going to have to step up eventually to save his family. Then, the inevitable happens. The boring soldier, in his relentless search for perfection, finally spots Courage. His eyes lock onto our hero, and a sinister grin spreads across his face. But he's not interested in Courage himself. He's interested in Courage's teeth. Yes, Courage's own, perfectly normal, slightly crooked doggy teeth. The soldier points his sword directly at Courage and bellows, You have the perfect smile." In that moment, Courage's worst fears are realized. He's become the target. The sheer terror of the situation is overwhelming. The soldier starts advancing, saw in hand, and Courage does the only thing he can do. He lets out one last, ear-piercing scream and faints dead away. The screen goes black, leaving us all holding our breath. When Courage finally comes to, the world is a little different. He slowly opens his eyes, his head throbbing. He's still in the barn, but the boring soldier and the army of dentures are gone. It's completely silent. For a moment, he might think it was all just a terrible nightmare. He sits up, confused, and tries to get his bearings. He opens his mouth to let out a confused whimper, and that's when he sees it. Standing right in front of him, at attention, are his own teeth. They have somehow popped out of his mouth and are now standing in a perfect line, giving him a crisp military salute. The episode ends on this absolutely mind-bending, surreal image. Courage's own teeth have joined the army. What does it all mean? Like many Courage episodes, the March of the Teeth is open to interpretation. Is it a commentary on conformity and the insane pursuit of perfection? The boring soldier's obsession with a perfect smile could be a metaphor for societal pressures to fit a certain mold. The dentures, all uniform and marching in unison, represent the loss of individuality. Courage, with his unique and imperfect teeth, is the outlier who must be brought into line. When his own teeth are conscripted, it suggests a chilling defeat, a world where even your own body can be turned against you in the name of conformity. Or maybe it's a surreal exploration of dental anxiety. Many of us have a fear of the dentist, of drills and tools, and having our teeth inspected. This episode takes that common fear and cranks it up to a nightmarish 11. The boring soldier is the ultimate evil dentist, and the barn is his terrifying operating theater. The loss of one's teeth is a primal fear, and the episode plays on that brilliantly, turning a simple set of dentures into an instrument of horror. The animation and sound design in this episode are, as always, top-notch. The repetitive, rhythmic clacking of the marching teeth is incredibly effective at building an atmosphere of dread. The stark, shadowy lighting in the barn contrasts sharply with the bright, almost cheerful colors of the farmhouse, creating two distinct worlds, the world of the normal and the world of the bizarre. The character design of the boring soldier is also fantastic. He's just strange enough to be memorable and just menacing enough to be a genuine threat. The March of the Teeth is a perfect example of what makes Courage the Cowardly Dog such an enduring and beloved show. It takes a simple, almost silly premise, marching dentures, and spins it into a complex, terrifying, and thought-provoking tale. It blends horror, comedy, and surrealism in a way that few other shows have ever managed. It leaves you with more questions than answers, and that final, unforgettable image of Courage saluting teeth is one that will stick with you long after the credits roll. It's a testament to the show's creativity and its ability to find horror in the most mundane corners of life. So what do you guys think? What's your interpretation of this incredibly weird episode? Is it a metaphor for something deeper? Or is it just pure, unadulterated cartoon chaos? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Ever find yourself scrolling late at night, just one more video, and suddenly you see an ad that feels a little too perfect? A miracle cure for sleepless nights, a gadget that promises the deepest rest you've ever had? Well, for our dear Muriel, one of those ads became a living nightmare. It all started with a simple, well-intentioned gift for her beloved dog, Courage. It was a quiet afternoon in the middle of nowhere. The sun was setting, casting long, spooky shadows across the dusty plains. A rickety van, painted with swirling, hypnotic patterns, pulled up to the lonely farmhouse. Out stepped a salesman, his smile just a little too wide, his eyes gleaming with an unsettling fervor. He was selling pillows. Not just any pillows, mind you, but Dr. Zalost's sleep enhancer pillows. He promised Muriel they were filled with a revolutionary dream foam, guaranteed to provide the most restorative sleep imaginable. Muriel, ever the sweet soul, thought it was the perfect present for Courage, who often whimpered and twitched in his sleep. She happily traded a jar of her award-winning jam for a small, strangely heavy pillow. That night, as Courage laid his head on the new pillow, he felt an unusual coldness seep through the fabric. It wasn't unpleasant, just strange. He drifted off to sleep almost instantly, plunging into a dream unlike any he'd ever had. He wasn't chasing rabbits or fleeing from monsters. Instead, he found himself standing on a vast grey parade ground under a perpetually twilight sky. Before him, an army of soldiers marched in perfect, unnerving rhythm. Their boots hit the ground with a single thunderous crunch, crunch, crunch. They were faceless, their features obscured by shadow, but they all wore the same drab grey uniform. At their head stood a figure slightly taller than the rest. His uniform was the same, but it bore a single tarnished brass medal. As he turned, Courage saw his face. It was utterly, profoundly boring. There were no distinguishing features, no scars, no expression, just a blank canvas of a man. This was the boring soldier. He raised a hand in a stiff, formal salute directly at Courage. His voice, when it came, was a monotone drone that seemed to vibrate in Courage's very bones. "Sleep deeper, little dog," he commanded. "Join the ranks, march with us. Forget the waking world. There is only sleep, there is only the march." Courage awoke with a terrified gasp, his heart hammering against his ribs. The dream was fading, but the sound was still there. That rhythmic marching crunch, crunch, crunch echoed faintly in his ears, as if coming from far away. He scrambled out of his bed, looking around the dark farmhouse. Muriel and Eustace were sleeping soundly, blissfully unaware. The sound seemed to be coming from outside. Trembling, Courage crept to the window and peered out into the moonlit yard. His blood ran cold. There, in the soft dirt, was a line of muddy boot prints, perfectly spaced, impossibly uniform. And they led from the edge of the property, across the yard, right up to the farmhouse door, and ended directly under his window. The next day was a fog of anxiety for Courage. The marching sound never completely faded. It was a faint, persistent background noise, a phantom rhythm that only he could hear. He tried to warn Muriel, tugging on her apron, pointing frantically at the pillow and mimicking the marching soldiers with his little legs. Muriel just chuckled. "Oh, Courage," she said, patting his head. "You silly dog. You must have had a very exciting dream on your new pillow." Eustace, of course, was no help at all. "Stupid dog. Stop your yapping and get me my mallet," he grumbled from his armchair. Courage felt a growing sense of dread. The pillow wasn't just a pillow. It was a doorway. That night, Courage resisted sleep with all his might. He tried propping his eyelids open with toothpicks. He drank a whole pot of coffee he'd secretly brewed. Anything to stay awake. But the pull of the pillow was irresistible. It seemed to hum with a low, soothing energy, drawing him in. As his eyes finally fluttered shut, he was instantly back on the grey parade ground. The army was larger now. Hundreds, maybe thousands of faceless soldiers marched in unison. The boring soldier stood before him again, his expression as blank as ever. "You resisted," he droned, the sound devoid of any emotion. "Resistance is pointless. The waking world is chaos. Here there is order, there is purpose. March, sleep, forget." The rhythmic crunching of their boots was louder this time, more insistent. Courage felt his own paws begin to twitch, wanting to fall into step. He fought it, shaking his head wildly. In the dream he screamed, but no sound came out. He was trapped in a silent nightmare of perfect, monotonous order. Suddenly, a new figure appeared on the parade ground. It was Muriel. But she wasn't his loving Muriel. She wore the same grey uniform, her face was blank and expressionless, and she marched in perfect time with the others. Crunch, crunch, crunch. She was one of them. Courage shot awake, a real terrified scream ripping from his throat this time. The marching sound was louder now, seeming to come from right inside the walls of the farmhouse. He looked at Muriel, sleeping peacefully. Was his dream just a dream, or was it a premonition? Was the pillow slowly converting her too? He had to get rid of it. He grabbed the pillow in his teeth and tried to drag it out of his basket, but it felt impossibly heavy, as if it were anchored to the floor. He pulled and tugged, his muscles straining, but it wouldn't budge. He looked down and saw why. Tendrils, like dark, dusty roots, had grown from the bottom of the pillow, burrowing deep into the wooden floorboards of the house. The pillow was planting itself. It was taking root. Desperate, Courage knew he couldn't fight this alone. He needed information. He raced to his only true friend in these matters, his computer. Typing with frantic paws, he searched for Dr. Zalost's sleep enhancer pillow. The results were terrifying. He found old archived news articles and forum posts from people all over the world. They all told the same story. A mysterious salesman, a magical pillow, and then nothing. The people who bought them would become withdrawn, quiet, and listless. They'd sleep more and more until one day they simply wouldn't wake up. They were there, but they were gone. One conspiracy theorist called them the Lost Army, people whose consciousness had been stolen and conscripted into a dream world military. The computer screen suddenly flickered and went dark. A single pixelated image appeared. The face of the boring soldier. A synthesized monotone voice filled the room. There is no escape, little dog. The network is ours. The information is ours. The world will sleep. The world will march. The computer shut down, refusing to turn back on. Courage was cut off. He was alone. The marching was no longer a faint echo. It was a full-blown military drumbeat shaking the entire farmhouse. Crunch, crunch, crunch. He looked over at Eustace's chair. Even Eustace was stirring, his head nodding in time with the rhythm. The influence was spreading. Courage knew there was only one way. He couldn't destroy the pillow by force, but maybe he could fight it on its own turf. He had to go back into the dream. But this time, he had to go in with a weapon. Not a weapon of violence, but a weapon of chaos, of love, of everything the boring soldier's world was not. He raced to the kitchen, grabbing Muriel's bagpipes. He snatched Eustace's hideous green monster mask. He found his favorite squeaky toy, a bright yellow duck. Armed with these instruments of pure chaotic nonsense, he took a deep breath and laid his head back on the pillow, willingly diving back into the nightmare. He appeared on the parade ground. The army was a sea of grey, stretching to the horizon. Muriel and even a blank-faced Eustace were now in the ranks, marching in lockstep. The boring soldier stood on a tall podium, overseeing his silent, orderly world. "You have returned," the soldier droned. "You have accepted your purpose. Now take your place. March, sleep, obey." But Courage didn't march. He put the hideous mask on his face. He let out a piercing, off-key squeak from his duck toy, and then he began to play. He blew into the bagpipes with all the might his little dog lungs could muster. A terrible, wonderful, chaotic screech filled the silent world. It wasn't music, it was noise. It was passion. It was everything that didn't belong. The soldiers faltered. Their perfect rhythm broke. One tripped, then another. Confusion rippled through the ranks. They had no programming for this. The boring soldier's blank face twitched, the first sign of emotion Courage had ever seen on it. It was annoyance. "Cease this disorder," he commanded. "Return to the rhythm, march, sleep." Courage only played louder, his squeaky duck providing a ridiculous counter-melody to the screeching pipes. He danced a jig, a clumsy, happy, chaotic dance. He wasn't marching, he was living. The grey, twilight world began to flicker. Color started to bleed back in at the edges. A patch of green grass appeared. A blue sky peeked through the grey clouds. The dream world couldn't handle the joyful, unpredictable chaos. It couldn't handle Courage's love for his family, a love that was messy and loud and imperfect. The dream versions of Muriel and Eustace stopped marching. A flicker of recognition appeared in their eyes. Muriel smiled a real, warm smile. The boring soldier shrieked, a sound that was finally full of emotion, pure rage and frustration. "No order, silence, sleep!" But his world was crumbling. The soldiers dissolved into dust. The parade ground cracked apart. With a final agonizing groan, the boring soldier himself disintegrated, his blank features the last thing to fade. Courage woke up. The sun was streaming through the window. The house was silent. The oppressive marching sound was completely gone. He looked at the pillow. It was now just a normal pillow. The dark, root-like tendrils had withered into dust. It was light and fluffy. He nudged it with his nose. It was just a simple, ordinary pillow. Muriel came into the room, yawning. "Good morning, Courage," she said sweetly. "Did you sleep well on your new pillow?" Courage looked at the pillow, then back at his beloved Muriel, safe and sound. He wagged his tail and gave her a big, slobbery lick on the cheek. He had faced the void of perfect dream-filled order and defeated it with the chaotic, beautiful noise of life itself. And as he curled up at Muriel's feet, ready for a well-deserved normal nap, he knew that some things are worth staying awake for. Have you ever looked in a mirror and felt like something was looking back? Not just your reflection, but something else? Our story tonight is about that very feeling, a story that will make you think twice before you glance at your own reflection. It's about a man named Courage, who, despite his name, was about to face a terror he could never have imagined. It all started on a dusty, forgotten Tuesday afternoon. Courage, a man who lived a life as quiet as the old house he inherited, decided it was finally time to tackle the attic. It was a place of shadows and memories, filled with the ghosts of forgotten belongings. Up he went, the wooden stairs groaning under his weight, each creak a complaint against his intrusion. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and decaying wood. Sunlight struggled through a single grimy window, illuminating dancing dust motes in its golden beam. He worked for hours, sorting through boxes of faded photographs and moth-eaten clothes. Just as he was about to call it a day, his hand brushed against something cold and smooth, hidden under a stack of yellowed newspapers. He pulled it out. It was a mirror, large and ornate, with a heavy, tarnished silver frame. The frame was intricately carved with twisting vines and strange, unsettling faces that seemed to grimace and leer. The glass itself was surprisingly clear, almost unnervingly so. Curiosity got the better of him. He wiped away a layer of grime and held it up. His own reflection stared back, a little tired, a little dusty. But then his blood ran cold. Over his shoulder in the reflection, something was moving. He squinted. It was an army, rows upon rows of soldiers, clad in old-fashioned dark uniforms, marching in silent, perfect unison. Their faces were grim, their eyes hollow. They marched and marched, an endless procession in the glass world behind him. His heart hammered against his ribs. He spun around, expecting to see his attic filled with spectral soldiers, but there was nothing. Just boxes, dust, and the lonely beam of sunlight. He was alone. Shaking, he turned back to the mirror. The army was still there, marching silently behind his reflection, oblivious to his terror. He told himself it was a trick of the light, a hallucination brought on by dust and fatigue. He quickly covered the mirror with an old sheet and, with a shudder, shoved it back into its dark corner. But the image of the marching army was burned into his mind. That night, sleep offered no escape. He tossed and turned, haunted by the vision of the silent soldiers. He kept telling himself it wasn't real, just a bad dream. But a part of him knew. A deep, primal fear told him that what he saw was no illusion. He finally drifted into a fitful sleep, only to be jolted awake by a sound from downstairs. A soft, rhythmic thud, 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 thud. It sounded like a single, solitary footstep marching. Courage crept out of bed, his every nerve screaming. He grabbed the heaviest thing he could find, an old brass candlestick, and tiptoed down the stairs. The sound was coming from the living room. He peered around the corner. Moonlight streamed through the window, bathing the room in a silvery glow, and there, in the middle of the room, stood a soldier. The uniform was identical to the ones in the mirror. He was just standing there, motionless, his back to Courage. Courage's breath hitched. How did he get in? All the doors and windows were locked. As he watched, frozen in place, the soldier's form began to flicker like a faulty television screen. He seemed to waver between being solid and almost transparent. Courage realized with a dawning horror that the moonlight was shining right through him. This wasn't a man, it was a ghost. He must have made a sound, a gasp, a whimper, because the soldier slowly began to turn. Courage didn't wait to see its face. He fled back up the stairs, slamming his bedroom door and barricading it with a dresser. He spent the rest of the night huddled in a corner, listening. But the marching sound was gone. There was only silence. A heavy, waiting silence. The next day was a nightmare of anxiety. He considered calling the police, but what would he say? That his house was haunted by a ghost soldier. They'd think he was crazy. He thought about leaving, just packing a bag and running. But where would he go? This was his home. He resolved to face it. He had to get rid of the mirror. That evening, as dusk painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, he forced himself back up to the attic. He didn't want to. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but he knew he couldn't live like this. With trembling hands, he pulled the sheet off the mirror. The army was still there, marching eternally. He stared into the glass, into his own terrified eyes, and for a moment he felt a strange pull, a dizzying sensation, as if the mirror was trying to draw him in. He shook his head, clearing it, and grabbed the mirror. It was heavier than he remembered, a dead weight in his hands. He started to drag it towards the stairs, planning to take it outside and smash it. But then he saw it. In the reflection, one of the soldiers at the front of the line stopped marching. It turned its head and looked directly at him. Its eyes were black pits. Then it took a step not within the reflection, but a step out of it. Courage watched in disbelief as the soldier's leg, then its torso, then its head, emerged from the surface of the glass as if it were water. The soldier stepped onto the dusty attic floor, becoming solid, real. It stood there, its hollow eyes fixed on Courage. Then behind it, another soldier began to emerge from the mirror, and another. They were pouring out now, a silent, terrifying flood of apparitions filling his attic. They formed ranks, their movements precise and synchronized. They didn't make a sound, yet the air crackled with a malevolent energy. Courage was trapped, surrounded by a phantom army. He was paralyzed by fear, unable to move, unable to scream. Then a figure appeared in the mirror who was different from the rest. He wore a more ornate uniform, with a captain's insignia on his collar. He had a cruel, thin-lipped mouth, and his eyes glinted with a dark intelligence. He didn't march. He simply glided through the glass, a confident, predatory smile spreading across his face. He stepped onto the attic floor and stood before his spectral troops. He turned his chilling gaze on Courage. The smile widened, showing a row of unnaturally sharp teeth. His voice, when he spoke, was a dry, rasping whisper, like dead leaves skittering across pavement. "Thank you for freeing us," he hissed. "It gets so crowded in there. We were reflections once too. Trapped, just like you're about to be." That sentence, that horrifying promise, shattered Courage's paralysis. A surge of pure, primal adrenaline shot through him. He wasn't going to be trapped. Not here, not like this. With a raw cry of defiance, he lifted the heavy mirror high above his head and, with all his strength, hurled it to the floor. It hit with a deafening crash, exploding into 1,000 glittering shards. For a moment, there was silence. The soldiers flickered and vanished. The captain let out a shriek of rage that seemed to tear at the very air, and then he too dissolved into nothing. Courage stood there, panting, his body trembling, surrounded by the glittering remnants of his nightmare. He had done it. It was over. Or so he thought. He sagged against the wall, catching his breath, relief washing over him. But as his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he noticed something. A glint from a piece of broken glass near his foot. He looked closer. Reflected in the tiny shard was a sliver of a grin. A wide, cruel, familiar grin. His head snapped up. He looked around the attic. Every single piece of broken mirror, from the largest jagged fragment to the smallest sparkling speck, held a reflection. And in every single reflection, from every corner of the room, a pair of dark eyes stared back at him, and a wide, predatory grin promised an eternity of terror. He hadn't destroyed the prison. He had just given it 1,000 new windows. Thanks so much for joining me for this chilling tale. Sometimes the things we try to destroy only end up multiplying. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more that will keep you up at night, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss a new nightmare. Until next time, be careful what you see in the glass. Have you ever woken up feeling like something's missing? Not your keys, not your phone, but something far more precious? For the residents of one quiet town, that feeling became a chilling reality. This is the story of the Grin Collector. Every night, as the clock tower chimed its 12 solemn notes, a figure stepped from the shadows of sleep into the landscape of dreams. They called him the Boring Soldier. He wasn't a creature of nightmares, not in the traditional sense. He didn't chase or frighten. He simply walked, his footsteps silent, his presence a void of color and emotion in a world built of fantasy. And with each step, he collected. He would reach out a gloved hand, not to harm, but to gently lift the smiles from the faces of dreamers. He gathered them like rare butterflies, tucking them away into a drab gray satchel. The next morning, the town was a sea of blank expressions. The baker who once greeted everyone with a beaming smile now handed over bread with an empty stare. The children who used to laugh on the swings sat motionless, their faces as still as porcelain dolls. Joy had been erased, leaving a uniform, unsettling apathy. Panic didn't set in, because panic requires emotion. There was just nothing, a silent, collective emptiness. But one soul remained untouched. Courage, a small but spirited terrier, woke up not with a blank face, but with a grin of pure, unadulterated panic. His lips were pulled back, his teeth bared, not in aggression, but in sheer terror. He knew. He remembered the boring soldier from his dreams. He had chased him, barked at him, but the soldier was as unshakable as a statue. As courage whimpered, his panicked grin frozen on his face, the world around him began to warp. The reflection in the hallway mirror shimmered, the silver surface turning murky, like a disturbed pond. From the depths of the glass, a figure emerged, stepping into the room as if passing through a curtain. It was him. The boring soldier in his drab uniform, his face as expressionless as those he had visited in the night. "Give me your smile," the soldier said. His voice was a monotone, a flat line in the air. It wasn't a request, it was a statement of intent. He held out his grey satchel, which pulsed with a faint captured light, the stolen glow of 1,000 smiles. Courage, true to his name, didn't cower. He erupted. A torrent of furious barks filled the house, a desperate, defiant sound against the encroaching silence. He was a tiny storm of fur and fear, guarding the last smile in town, even if it was one of terror. The soldier took a slow, deliberate step forward, his hand outstretched, his gaze fixed on the dog's trembling mouth. Just as the soldier's fingers were about to close in, the bedroom door creaked open. Muriel, Courage's elderly owner, shuffled in, holding a plate. Her face, like all the others, was a blank canvas. She didn't seem to notice the spectral soldier standing in her hallway. Her focus was entirely on her distressed pet. "Oh, you poor dear," she cooed, her voice gentle, though her face showed no corresponding warmth. "Having a bad dream, are you?" She knelt down, placing the plate on the floor. On it were 2 freshly baked cookies, their chocolate chips still slightly melted. "Cookies calm nightmares," she said sweetly, the words a hollow echo of a kindness her face could no longer express. The scent of warm cookies hit Courage, a familiar comfort in a moment of pure dread. His frantic barking subsided into a confused whine. His panicked grin softened slightly. The boring soldier paused, his head tilting with a flicker of what might have been curiosity. He watched as Courage cautiously sniffed the offering. Muriel, seeing her dog calm down, attempted a reassuring gesture. She smiled, or at least she tried to. Her lips pulled back, her facial muscles moving from memory. But the effect was horrifying. Where a set of kind, grandmotherly teeth should have been, there was only a dark, empty void. Her gums were smooth, black and barren. The soldier hadn't just stolen the expression of joy. He had taken the very architecture of it. The soldier looked from the dog's panicked grin to Muriel's terrifyingly empty smile. He seemed to be processing this new information. Was it only the expression he wanted, or the physical thing itself? His satchel pulsed again, a little brighter this time. In that moment of hesitation, Courage made his choice. He ignored the cookies. He looked at Muriel's empty mouth, then at the soldier. With a renewed surge of loyalty, he launched himself forward, not at the soldier, but at the satchel. He bit down hard on the grey fabric. A cascade of light erupted from the bag. It wasn't a blinding flash, but a soft, shimmering aurora of captured joy. Tiny, ethereal smiles, like glowing fireflies, poured out and began to dance around the room. One floated towards Muriel, and as it touched her lips, a faint, ghostly set of teeth flickered into existence, and the corners of her mouth twitched upwards, just for a second. The boring soldier didn't flinch. He simply looked at the chaos, then at Courage, who was now wrestling with the source of his power. The soldier raised a hand, not to attack but to point. He pointed at the cookies, then he pointed at his own blank face. A trade. He was offering a trade. What does this mean? Was the soldier not a thief, but a collector seeking something he'd lost? And could a simple cookie, an act of comfort, be the key to restoring what had been stolen? The air crackled with unspoken questions as dozens of smiles floated freely, searching for their owners. The fate of the town's joy now rested on a small dog, a plate of cookies, and the silent proposition of the grin collector. The story, it seemed, was far from over. Stay curious, and we'll see you in the next video. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel where we dive deep into the creepiest, crawliest, and most downright bizarre tales from the middle of nowhere. Today we're unpacking one of the most chilling episodes, a story that blends military precision with supernatural dread. Let's stand at attention as we dissect the eerie tale of the uniform. It all starts on a seemingly normal day in nowhere, which, as we know, is never a good sign. Eustace, in his infinite wisdom and with his unparalleled eye for a bargain, stumbles upon a yard sale. And what does he find? An old, dusty, but remarkably well-preserved army uniform. He tries it on, and you can just hear him grumbling, "Looks sharp!" He's so proud of his new find, completely oblivious to the dark history woven into its very fabric. He brings it home, hangs it up, and settles in for another quiet evening of doing absolutely nothing. But in the middle of nowhere, quiet is a luxury that never lasts. That night, as the farmhouse is cloaked in darkness, something stirs. Courage, our ever-vigilant hero, is awakened by a strange sound. He peeks out from under the covers and sees it. The uniform, hanging on its own, is moving. The arm stiffens, rising into a perfect, crisp salute, not to anyone in the room, but to something unseen, something spectral. The empty sleeves fold and unfold with an unsettling precision that sends a shiver down Courage's spine. This isn't just an old piece of clothing, it's a vessel, a relic haunted by a past that refuses to rest. Courage, being courage, knows he has to do something. This thing is radiating bad vibes, and he can't let it stay in the house. His first instinct? Hide it. Get it out of sight, out of mind. He tiptoes over, his heart pounding in his chest, and tries to bundle the uniform up. But the uniform has other plans. As he wrestles with the stiff fabric, the hat, a key part of the ensemble, suddenly leaps from its hook. It flies through the air with a mind of its own and lands squarely on Courage's head, fitting him perfectly. It's a chilling moment. It's not just an object anymore, it's actively choosing him. The second that hat touches his fur, the atmosphere in the room changes. The air grows cold, and ghostly apparitions begin to materialize out of thin air. They're soldiers, dozens of them, their forms translucent and wavering. They march in place, their phantom boots making no sound on the floorboards, but their presence is deafeningly loud. They aren't just ghosts, they're an army, a spectral platoon summoned by the uniform. Their eyes are hollow, but they all fixate on Courage, and a low, guttural chant begins to fill the room, a rhythmic, hypnotic cadence that speaks of duty, discipline, and something much, much darker. From the ranks of these phantoms, one figure steps forward. He's different from the others, more solid, more defined, with an air of authority. This is the boring soldier, the leader of this ghostly battalion. His voice, when it comes, is devoid of all emotion, a monotone drone that cuts through the chanting and freezes Courage in place. He points a spectral finger directly at our terrified pink dog and declares, "Private Courage, reporting for eternal duty." The words hang in the air, a sentence of damnation. Eternal duty. There's no discharge, no going home. Courage lets out a scream that could curdle milk, a sound of pure, unadulterated terror, but it's too late. The uniform, which had been dormant since the hat landed on his head, springs to life again. The jacket sleeves wrap around his small body, the buttons fastening themselves with impossible speed. The trousers cinch tight around his legs. It's not just on him anymore, it's becoming a part of him, a second skin of haunted khaki. He can feel it constricting, tightening, molding him into the shape of a soldier. Their soldier. The chanting of the ghostly troops grows louder, a welcoming chorus for their newest and most unwilling recruit. He's trapped. The uniform is pulling him, forcing his little body into a rigid military posture. He tries to fight, to squirm his way out, but the fabric is like iron. The weight of the hat feels like a ton of bricks, and the collective stare of the ghostly army presses in on him from all sides. They see him not as a frightened dog, but as Private Courage, one of their own, bound to serve an eternity in their spectral ranks. His identity is being stripped away, replaced by the role the uniform has chosen for him. The farmhouse has become a supernatural barracks, and basic training has just begun. This episode is a masterclass in psychological horror. It's not about a monster with sharp teeth. It's about the loss of self, the terrifying idea of being forced into a role you never asked for, an identity that consumes you. The uniform represents a past that is so powerful it can reach into the present and claim new victims. It's the ultimate symbol of duty and conformity, twisted into a horrifying curse. For Courage, this isn't just a physical threat. It's a battle for his very soul, a struggle against being erased and remade in the image of a long-dead army. He's no longer just Courage, the cowardly dog who lives in the middle of nowhere. He is now Private Courage, and his tour of duty is just beginning, with no end in sight. What a terrifying concept, right? To be trapped by an object, forced into a life or an afterlife that isn't yours. Let me know in the comments what you think is the scariest part of this story. Is it the uniform moving on its own, the ghostly army, or the idea of eternal duty? It's a tough one for me, but that final declaration always gives me chills. Thanks so much for watching and joining me on this trip back to nowhere. We've got plenty more strange tales to uncover. Until next time, stay safe and maybe think twice before buying old uniforms at yard sales. Bye for now. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm glad you're here because today's story is, well, it's one you won't forget. Imagine a village where silence is a treasure. Not because it's noisy with laughter or carts, but because one day something utterly impossible happened. A sound started, not from the streets or the houses, but from inside everyone's own head. A low, soft hum, like a distant choir. It took hours for the first person to realize the truth, a truth so bizarre it felt like madness. The sound wasn't in their ears, it was in their mouths. Their teeth were singing. Every single tooth in the village of nowhere had begun to sing. It wasn't a cheerful tune, it was a melody, a single unbroken lullaby that resonated through bone and sinew. Imagine trying to eat or talk or sleep with a 32-piece choir performing a concert inside your own skull. Panic began to bubble up. The blacksmith dropped his hammer. The baker forgot his dough. Children cried because the song wouldn't stop. It was a gentle, haunting tune, yet it was a form of torture. It seeped into their thoughts, pulling at the edges of their consciousness, promising a sleep so deep it felt like an ending. Most villagers barricaded themselves indoors, stuffing cotton in their ears, which did nothing, of course, but not courage. You remember him, our little pink dog. He couldn't stand seeing Muriel so distressed, her hands pressed to her cheeks, her eyes wide with a sleepy sort of fear. Eustace naturally was just complaining louder than the teeth, which was almost an achievement. Courage knew he had to do something. This wasn't a random curse, it had a source. The song felt like it was pulling him somewhere, a gentle but insistent tug on his very being. So, with a determined look, Courage patted Muriel's hand and headed out the door. The air outside was thick with the collective hum. It was louder here, the combined chorus of every man, woman and child's teeth creating a symphony of strange, sorrowful rest. Courage focused, turning his head, trying to pinpoint the direction. The melody seemed strongest from the east, towards the lonely, barren hill that overlooked the farm. The hill nobody ever went to. With a gulp, Courage put one paw in front of the other and began his trek, the lullaby of teeth guiding his every step. The climb was harder than it looked. The song was getting stronger, clearer. It wasn't just a hum anymore. It was a fully formed lullaby, with complex harmonies that seemed to vibrate in the very air he was breathing. Courage felt his eyelids grow heavy. His paws felt like lead. The song was promising peace, a quiet, dreamless slumber that felt so inviting. He stumbled, catching himself on a thorny bush. The sharp pain was a welcome jolt, clearing his head for a moment. He had to stay awake. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that if he fell asleep out here, he would never wake up. He reached the crest of the hill, and the sight before him made his fur stand on end. There, silhouetted against the grey sky, was a figure, a tall, gaunt man in a tattered soldier's uniform, meticulously polishing a long, gleaming bone saw. His movements were rhythmic, perfectly in time with the song that now saturated the air. This was the boring soldier, a local legend, a ghost story whispered to scare children. They said he was eternally looking for recruits for his phantom army. Courage's heart hammered against his ribs, but he couldn't turn back. He approached cautiously. The soldier didn't seem to notice him at first, his focus entirely on the saw, which shone with a sterile, menacing light. The humming was so intense here, it was like standing inside a giant's throat. Courage had to shout to be heard over the drone. "Stop!" he yelped, his voice sounding small and thin. The soldier paused, his polishing cloth held mid-swipe. He turned his head slowly, his eyes hollow and empty. "Stop," he said, his voice a dry rustle like dead leaves. "Why would I stop? They are resting." Courage pointed back towards the village, trembling. "Everyone's teeth, they're singing. You have to make it stop." The boring soldier looked at Courage with a flicker of something that might have been pity. "They are not just singing, little one," he explained, his voice flat and monotonous. "They are practicing. My soldiers must be at peace before the battle. They must rest. This is their lullaby." He gestured with the bone saw towards the horizon. "When they are fully rested, they will march." Courage's mind reeled. His soldiers? What soldiers? Then he understood. The teeth were the soldiers. This wasn't just a song, it was a recruitment drive. The lullaby was so powerful, so hypnotic, that Courage felt his own knees begin to buckle. His visions swam. The world was tilting, the soldier's form blurring into the grey sky. Sleep was coming for him. A vast, quiet ocean ready to pull him under. He had to do something, anything, to stay awake. In a moment of pure, desperate instinct, he did the only thing he could think of. He bit down, hard. A sharp, searing pain exploded in his mouth. He cried out, and when he did, he felt something small and hard shoot from his lips. He spat onto the dusty ground. A single drop of bright red blood landed next to a tiny, pearly white object. It was a tooth. His tooth. And as Courage stared in horror, the tiny thing began to quiver. A faint, high-pitched note emerged from it, a perfect harmony to the larger chorus. His own tooth, now free from his mouth, had joined the boring soldier's choir. The soldier smiled a thin, lipless smile. "Another fine recruit," he rasped. "Soon the army will be complete." Courage looked from his singing tooth on the ground to the soldier, then back towards the farm where Muriel was. The lullaby was growing louder, and he was running out of time. What could he possibly do now? The source of the problem was also its own army. How do you fight a song? How do you argue with a legion of singing teeth? This was one of the strangest and most terrifying situations Courage had ever found himself in. And as he stood there on that lonely hill, with his own tooth serenading its new commander, he knew this was far from over. Thanks for watching, everyone. It gets even weirder from here, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what happens next. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Have you ever tried to stifle a yawn in class, worried your teacher would catch you? Well, what if it wasn't the teacher you had to worry about? In the quiet halls of Northwood High, there was a legend, a whispered tale about something called the yawning curse. They said if you yawned in class, a figure would appear, a figure they called the boring soldier. The story went like this. A student, eyelids heavy, would let out a wide, jaw-stretching yawn. And just like that, out of the corner of their eye, they'd see him. A soldier, standing impossibly still, with a polished but dull uniform. He'd lean in, his voice a dry whisper, "Sleepy are we?" The first few times it happened, students just thought they were seeing things, a trick of the tired mind. It was a funny story, a classroom myth to share during lunch, but then something strange started happening. The yawns. They just stopped. Completely. No one yawned in class anymore. Students would pinch themselves, down gallons of coffee, anything to keep their mouths shut. The fear of summoning the boring soldier was real. It became an unspoken rule. You could be tired, you could be exhausted, but you did not yawn. The story was passed down from seniors to freshmen, a cautionary tale to keep you awake during long lectures. Most students, like our protagonist Courage, thought it was just a silly superstition. Courage was a bit of a skeptic, always looking for a logical explanation. A shared hallucination caused by sleep deprivation. A prank pulled by the drama club. He wasn't buying it. One particularly grueling Tuesday, during a history lecture that could put an owl to sleep, it happened. Courage had been up all night studying for a chemistry exam. His eyelids felt like lead weights. He fought it, he really did. He bit his lip, dug his nails into his palm, but the wave of exhaustion was a tsunami. A huge, unstoppable yawn escaped him before he could clamp his jaw shut. The sound echoed in the silent classroom. A few classmates shot him looks of pure terror. Courage just rolled his eyes, a small, smug smile on his face. See? Nothing happened. The bell rang, signaling the end of the day. Courage packed his bag, feeling a little triumphant. He'd broken the curse, proven everyone wrong. As he walked down the now empty hallway, a strange sound reached his ears. A faint, rhythmic thud. Thump, thump, thump. It sounded like marching. He picked up his pace, a cold knot forming in his stomach. The marching grew louder, closer, echoing off the lockers. Thump, thump, thump. It was right behind him. He didn't dare turn around. He broke into a run, his heart hammering against his ribs. He burst through the school doors and didn't stop until he was safely locked in his bedroom. He leaned against the door, panting, trying to convince himself it was just his imagination. The stress of the exam, the lack of sleep. It had to be. He collapsed onto his bed, pulling his pillow over his head. The darkness a welcome comfort. He was safe. It was over. That's when he heard it. Not from the hallway, not from outside his window, but from right beside his ear. A cheerful, impossibly close voice whispered, "You called me." Courage's blood ran cold. He slowly turned his head. In the sliver of light from his desk lamp, a grin shone in the dark. A wide, unnerving grin on the face of a soldier. The boring soldier was real, and he was in Courage's room. Courage did the only thing he could. He let out a scream that could shatter glass. A raw, primal scream filled with pure, unadulterated terror. The soldier simply tilted his head, his grin never faltering, and then, as silently as he appeared, he was gone. From that day on, things changed for Courage. He was still always tired, still always fighting sleep during class, but he never ever yawned again. He learned a new coping mechanism. Whenever he felt that familiar wave of exhaustion, that telltale tightening in his jaw, he wouldn't yawn, he'd just scream. At first it was startling. A sudden, piercing shriek would erupt from the back of the class. His teachers were concerned, his classmates were confused. They sent him to the school counselor, who suggested breathing exercises. But Courage knew better. Breathing exercises wouldn't keep the soldier away. Only a good, solid scream would do the trick. The other students, the ones who knew the legend, understood. They'd just give him a knowing, sympathetic nod. They got it. A scream was loud, it was disruptive, but it wasn't a yawn. It wouldn't summon him. The boring soldier was never seen at Northwood High again. The curse was, in a way, broken. But a new, much louder tradition had begun. The school became known not for its silent, yawnless classrooms, but for the random, blood-curdling screams that punctuated the day. And it was all thanks to Courage, the boy who was too scared to yawn. He might have been tired, but he was safe, and in the end, that's all that mattered. So the next time you feel a yawn coming on, maybe think twice. You never know who might be listening, waiting for their invitation. Maybe a little scream is the safer option. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this spooky little story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Stay awake and stay safe. Have you ever been so tired you felt like you could sleep for 100 years? But what if closing your eyes meant you might never wake up the same again? Tonight, we're venturing into the foggy fields of nowhere, Kansas, to uncover a tale that will make you think twice about dozing off. This is the story of Courage and the sleepy battlefield. Our story begins on a seemingly peaceful evening at the Bagge family farmhouse. The moon was a pale sliver in the inky sky, and a thick, unnatural fog was rolling in, blanketing the desolate landscape. Inside, Courage was curled up in his favorite spot, just about to drift into dreamland. But a strange chill in the air kept his whiskers twitching. He glanced over at Muriel, who was knitting peacefully in her rocking chair. "Oh, Courage, you silly dog," she said, noticing his unease. Don't you worry about that old field out there. Eustace's grandfather used to say there was a big war fought on this very land, but that was centuries ago. All those soldiers are long gone. If only that were true. As Muriel hummed a gentle tune, Courage crept to the window, his heart thumping like a drum. The fog outside wasn't just fog. It swirled and thickened, taking on ghostly shapes. One by one, spectral figures began to rise from the earth. They were soldiers, their uniforms tattered and translucent, their faces grim and hollow. They moved in an eerie, silent procession, their phantom boots making no sound on the damp soil. Courage wanted to scream, to run and hide under the bed, but he was frozen in place. He watched as hundreds of these ghostly soldiers formed ranks, their ethereal weapons held at the ready. They marched in perfect, unnerving silence, a phantom army in the heart of nowhere. But one figure stood apart from the rest. He was their captain, and unlike his somber troops, he wore a wide, manic grin that stretched unnaturally across his face. His eyes glowed with a faint, unsettling light as he surveyed his spectral battalion. He seemed to sense Courage watching, and his head snapped towards the farmhouse window. His smile widened, a terrifying sight in the gloom. With a jolt of terror, Courage yelped and ducked, scrambling to Muriel's side and tugging frantically at her dress. He whimpered, pointing a trembling paw towards the window. Muriel just chuckled. Now, Courage. There's nothing out there but a bit of fog. You've been watching too many scary movies. Eustace, roused from his newspaper, grumbled from his armchair. Stupid dog, making all that racket. Go back to sleep. He pulled his green monster mask over his face. Ooga booga booga! And laughed as Courage yelped and scurried away. But Courage knew what he saw. He had to warn them. He had to do something. Steeling his nerves, which felt like two wet noodles, he decided he had to face this threat head-on. With a deep, shaky breath, he pushed open the screen door and crept out into the foggy night. The air was cold and smelled of damp earth and something else, something ancient and sorrowful. The ghostly army was still there, a silent legion under the moon. The captain, with his terrifying grin, turned to face the small pink dog. Courage's knees knocked together, and his tail tucked so far between his legs it practically disappeared. He tried to speak, but only a squeak came out. The captain's voice echoed, not through the air, but directly inside Courage's head. It was a voice that sounded like grinding stones and forgotten whispers. Well, what have we here? A little watchdog come to see the parade?" Courage managed a terrified nod, his whole body shaking. "We are the soldiers of the endless war," the captain declared, his grin never faltering. "A long time ago, we fought and fell on this very ground, but our battle did not end with our last breath." He gestured to his silent troops. "We fight the war of dreams." The ghostly soldiers all turned their hollow eyes towards Courage, and a collective, mournful sigh seemed to ripple through the fog. "The war of dreams?" Courage finally managed to stammer, his voice a tiny squeak. "Indeed," the captain chuckled, a sound like dry leaves skittering across pavement. "When we fell, we were cursed. Cursed to never know peace, to never find rest. We lost our sleep, little dog. We wander the border between waking and dreaming, forever marching, forever fighting." The captain's glowing eyes narrowed. "And when you lose something so precious, you become envious of those who still have it." He took a step closer, and Courage instinctively stumbled back. The army of ghosts began to close in, forming a circle around the terrified dog. They moved without a sound, their spectral forms drifting like smoke. "We can't rest," the captain's voice boomed in Courage's mind. "So why should anyone else? We've seen you, little dog, sleeping so peacefully in your warm house. We've seen you dream your silly, happy dreams." His smile twisted into something more sinister. "We lost our sleep, and now we'll take yours." A wave of pure terror washed over Courage. Take his sleep? What did that even mean? Before he could process the thought, the ghostly soldiers raised their hands. From their fingertips, streams of shimmering ethereal energy flowed, weaving together to form a net of crackling light. They cast it over him, and as it fell, Courage felt a bizarre sensation, a pulling, a draining, as if something essential was being siphoned out of him. He felt the exhaustion of 1,000 sleepless nights pour into his very being. His eyelids felt like they were lined with lead, but a frantic buzzing energy coursed through his veins, refusing to let him rest. The soldiers' hollow faces seemed to fill with a faint glimmer of satisfaction as they absorbed his peace, his potential for slumber. The captain laughed, a triumphant hollow sound that echoed across the field. "Welcome to our ranks, little one. You will stand watch with us forever." Courage screamed, a real full-throated scream this time, a sound of pure, unadulterated panic. But it was too late. The feeling of being perpetually on the verge of sleep, yet utterly unable to cross that threshold, had settled deep within his soul. The ghosts began to fade as the first hint of dawn touched the horizon, their forms dissolving back into the morning mist. The captain was the last to go. He gave Courage a final, chilling wink. "We'll be back tonight, and every night after." Then he too vanished, leaving Courage alone in the field, trembling and utterly horrifyingly awake. When the sun finally rose, Muriel opened the door to find Courage standing stiffly in the yard, his eyes wide and bloodshot, staring at nothing. "Oh, Courage, you were out here all night? You must be exhausted, you poor thing. Come inside and get some sleep." She led him to his bed, but Courage couldn't lie down. He couldn't close his eyes. Every time he even thought about it, the image of the captain's manic grin and the feeling of that spectral net flashed through his mind. He was trapped. He was awake for life, terrified of ever closing his eyes again. For he knew that in the world of dreams, a ghostly army was waiting to claim him for their endless, sleepless war. And so he stood watch, a tiny pink sentinel against the horrors of the night, forever the coward, forever the hero, and now forever awake. What a chilling tale. It really makes you appreciate the simple peace of a good night's sleep. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and sleep well, if you can. Have you ever felt that strange, heavy pull of sleep, even when you're trying your hardest to stay awake? What if it wasn't just your body telling you to rest? What if something, or someone, was helping you along? Today we're diving into a hauntingly beautiful tale, a story that weaves together loneliness, duty, and a desperate search for peace. It's the story of a soldier with a peculiar, unending curse. Imagine a figure eternally walking, a soldier bound by a strange fate. His curse was deceptively simple. He could only find rest, true, deep, peaceful rest, when every single other soul in the world was asleep. A simple condition, yet an impossible one. And so he roamed. He became a silent guardian of slumber, a spectral shepherd guiding the world to its nightly peace. From the bustling heart of Tokyo to the quietest village in the Andes, his journey was ceaseless. He moved like a shadow, a whisper of wind that encouraged eyelids to grow heavy. He was the gentle pressure that made you finally put down your book, the unseen force that made the late-night movie feel just a little too long. He wasn't malicious. In his heart, there was no evil, only a profound, soul-crushing exhaustion and a singular, desperate goal: to sleep. For centuries, he walked. He saw empires rise and fall, watched generations live and die, all from the periphery, all while chasing that elusive moment of total global silence. He'd learned the rhythms of the world, the habits of humanity. He knew the night shift workers, the students cramming for exams, the insomniacs staring at their ceilings. One by one, he would find them. A gentle touch on the shoulder, a soft hum that sounded like a forgotten lullaby, and they would drift off, finally succumbing to the rest they needed. Each sleeping person was a small victory, another step closer to his own release. But there was always someone, somewhere, awake. Then one strange moonlit night, his eternal patrol led him to a most unusual place, a small, isolated farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. And in that house, he sensed a stubborn, flickering beacon of wakefulness. It was a small pink dog, his eyes wide with anxiety, glued to the flickering screen of a television. This was Courage. Courage, bless his perpetually terrified heart, was on his own mission, to stay awake. Maybe he'd heard a creak in the floorboards or seen a spooky shadow dance across the wall. Whatever the reason, he was determined to keep watch. He had his defenses ready. A gigantic pot of freshly brewed tar-black coffee sat beside him, and the television blared with the chaotic energy of cartoons. He was a small pink fortress of alertness against the encroaching night. The soldier watched from the window, a flicker of something unreadable in his weary eyes. Not annoyance, perhaps, respect. Here was a spirit as determined as his own. He stepped through the wall, a silent, translucent figure in a worn uniform. Courage yelped, his fur standing on end. He saw the soldier, a shimmering, sorrowful apparition standing by the armchair where Muriel slept peacefully. The soldier didn't speak. He simply raised a hand, a gentle, beckoning gesture. Courage shook his head frantically, gulping down a mouthful of bitter coffee. The jolt of caffeine worked for a moment. He focused back on the cartoons, on the bright colors and loud noises. He would not sleep. He would protect his home. The soldier simply waited. He knew better than to fight. His power wasn't in force, but in patience. He was the embodiment of exhaustion itself. Courage tried everything. He pinched himself. He splashed cold water on his face. He ran in circles until he was dizzy. But the soldier's presence was a heavy blanket, a pervasive, calming aura that seeped into the very air of the room. Every time Courage blinked, the world seemed to slow down. The soldier, who had been across the room, was now standing by the television. Blink. He was now next to the coffee pot. Courage's blinks grew longer, his eyelids feeling like they were made of lead. He fought it, his little body trembling with the effort. He was the last light on in a world of darkness, the final obstacle between this lonely soldier and his eternal reward. With one last heroic effort, Courage opened his eyes as wide as they could go. The soldier was standing right in front of him. He wasn't scary, not really. His face, etched with the weariness of 1,000 years, held a look of profound longing. He reached out a ghostly hand, not to harm, but to soothe. He placed it gently on Courage's head. A wave of irresistible peace washed over the little dog. It wasn't frightening. It was like Muriel's hugs, warm and safe. The cartoons on the screen blurred into a swirl of soft colors. The world faded. Courage's head drooped, his long battle finally over. He curled into a tight ball on the floor and fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. For the first time in centuries, the world was silent. Every single person, every single creature was at rest. The soldier stood in the quiet farmhouse, a profound stillness settling over him. The heavy weight of his curse, the burden he had carried for so long, finally began to lift from his shoulders. A slow, peaceful smile spread across his face, a smile of pure, unadulterated relief. He looked down at the sleeping pink dog and whispered, his voice a rustle of dry leaves. At last. He began to fade, his form becoming more and more transparent, like smoke dissipating in the morning air. His solid shape dissolved into motes of peaceful light. His duty fulfilled, his long vigil ended. He was finally going to rest. When the sun rose, Eustace grumbled his way into the living room. Muriel was still asleep in her chair, a peaceful smile on her face, but the room felt different. On the floor, there was a small, perfectly folded blue soldier's hat, the fabric ancient but pristine, and next to it, a single porcelain cup of cold, untouched coffee. Of Courage and the weary soldier there was no trace at all. Both, it seemed, had finally found their eternal nap. What a bittersweet, beautiful story, right? It makes you think about rest, not just as a biological need, but as a kind of peace we all search for. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a story that's part urban legend, part ghost story, and all parts chilling. It's a tale that proves even the most forgotten objects can hold the darkest secrets. This is the story of the saw that sang. Our story begins with a young man named Courage. An odd name, I know, but one he'd soon have to live up to. Like many of us, Courage was tasked with cleaning out his grandparents' dusty old attic, a treasure trove of forgotten memories and cobweb-covered relics. He spent hours sifting through old photo albums, moth-eaten clothes, and stacks of yellowed newspapers. Just as he was about to call it a day, something caught his eye. Tucked away in a dark corner, nestled inside a weathered wooden box, was a musical saw. It wasn't just any old saw. This one was ornate, its steel blade etched with intricate patterns, and its handle carved from dark, polished wood. As Courage lifted it, a strange, low hum vibrated through his hands. It wasn't the sound of metal, it was a melody. A faint but distinct military tune, like something from an old war movie. He ran his finger along the blade, and the hum grew stronger, resolving into a clear, mournful whistle. Then a voice, not from the room but from the saw itself. It was a raspy, metallic whisper that seemed to come from deep within the steel. "The name's Sawbones," it rasped. "Been a while since anyone had the guts to pick me up." Courage, completely stunned, nearly dropped it. A talking saw, a singing, talking saw. He thought he must be imagining things. Maybe the dust was getting to him. He cautiously placed it back in its box, deciding it was a mystery for another day, and headed downstairs, trying to shake the unnerving experience from his mind. But that night, as the old house settled into silence, the humming started again. It began as a low thrum from the attic, a sound Courage tried to ignore. But it grew steadily louder, the melody more insistent. It was a marching song, crisp and clear, echoing through the floorboards. The tune was hypnotic, almost magnetic. Then another voice joined the saw's metallic hum. This one was human, a gruff, commanding baritone singing along. "Shoulder to shoulder we march to the fray. Another good soldier joins up today." Courage's blood ran cold. He crept to the bottom of the attic stairs, listening. The soldier's voice was ghostly, filled with an eerie cheerfulness that didn't belong in the dead of night. "Come on, kid," the voice boomed, seemingly directed at him. "Sawbones needs a partner. Play the marching song with us." The Sawbones buzzed in agreement. "Play the song," it whispered, its metallic voice laced with a new, dangerous edge. Courage, standing frozen at the foot of the stairs, shook his head, his voice trembling. "No, I'm not playing anything." He didn't know what this was, but he knew, deep in his gut, that he wanted no part of it. A moment of silence followed his refusal. Then a sharp, violent crack echoed from the attic. Sawbones shrieked, a sound of pure metallic fury. It wasn't singing anymore. It was screaming. Courage heard a splintering sound, and he knew with chilling certainty that the saw had just cut itself free from its wooden box. The humming started again, but this time it was aggressive, menacing. The saw began to move, its blade slicing through the air with a terrifying, whizzing sound. It was sawing at nothing, creating a phantom rhythm in the darkness. Suddenly, the air in the hallway grew frigid. A shimmering light began to bleed through the cracks in the attic door. The soldier's voice, no longer alone, was joined by others. A chorus of ghostly voices, all chanting in perfect, chilling rhythm with the saw's frantic movements. 1, 2, here we go. 1, 2, join the show. Courage scrambled backward as the attic door slowly creaked open. Peering out from the darkness was not one, but dozens of figures. They were translucent, ghostly soldiers, all dressed in old-fashioned uniforms. Their faces were pale, their eyes hollow, but their mouths were stretched into wide, unnatural grins. They weren't marching, they were swaying, their spectral bodies moving in time with Sawbones' phantom soaring. They began to descend the stairs, their feet making no sound, their grins fixed and terrifying. They chanted in unison, their voices a haunting echo that filled the entire house. As they got closer, Courage could hear the full verse of their chilling song. It was a recruitment song, a soldier's anthem, but the final line sent a wave of pure terror through him. "Through mud and through fire, our numbers will grow," they chanted, their voices getting louder, their grins wider. Courage turned and ran. He fled through the living room, knocking over furniture, his heart pounding in his chest. The ghostly chorus followed him, their voices seeming to come from every direction at once, a nightmarish surround sound of the damned. He burst out the front door and didn't stop running, the final terrifying line of the song echoing in his mind, chasing him into the night. One more to join the line. One more to join the line. He never went back to that house. Years later, he would tell the story to anyone who would listen, a frantic warning about the singing saw in the attic. He knew what would have happened if he hadn't run. He would have become another grinning ghost, another voice in the choir, forever marching to the tune of Sawbones, the saw that sang you into the grave. What a creepy story, right? It makes you wonder what kind of history is attached to the old things we find. Maybe some things are better left forgotten in the attic. Thanks so much for hanging out and listening with me today. If you enjoyed this dive into the darkness, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video. Have you ever been scared of the dentist? That little chair, the bright light, the sound of the drill, it's enough to make anyone nervous. But what if your dentist was more than just a little scary? What if he was the reason people started disappearing from your town? Today, we're diving into a story that will make you think twice before your next checkup. A chilling tale from the middle of nowhere about a character some of you might know as the boring soldier. Now, this soldier wasn't always a stern, unsettling figure. Long before he was known for his stoic silence and unnerving presence, he had a different profession, one that was supposed to bring joy and confidence to people. He was a dentist, and not just any dentist. He was Dr. Glick, a man who promised everyone in town the one thing they all dreamed of, a perfect, dazzling smile. His office opened with a grand celebration. "A perfect smile for a perfect life," his flyers proclaimed. People were immediately drawn in. In a small, dusty town like nowhere, the promise of something perfect was irresistible. Dr. Glick was charming, his voice smooth and reassuring. He'd pat his patients on the back, telling them, "Don't you worry, you'll soon have a grin that could light up the darkest night." And people believed him. They flocked to his clinic one by one, eager for their transformation. But then a strange thing started to happen. Mrs. Gable, the town's baker, went in for a set of pearly whites and was never seen at her shop again. Mr. Henderson, the postman, scheduled an appointment to fix a chipped tooth and vanished from his mail route. Teenagers, farmers, the town mayor, they all went into Dr. Glick's office with hope in their eyes and were never seen again. At first, no one connected the dots. People move away, they take vacations, but the disappearances became a quiet, unsettling pattern. The town grew emptier, and a shadow of fear began to creep over the remaining residents. The strangest part? Dr. Glick's clinic remained open, the light in his window always on, as if he were patiently waiting for his next customer. His promise of a perfect smile started to sound less like a dream and more like a threat. This is where our favorite pink dog, Courage, enters the story. As you know, Courage has a knack for stumbling into the most terrifying situations imaginable. One sunny afternoon, while digging for a particularly interesting bone in his backyard, a habit that often led to trouble, his paws hit something hard. It wasn't a bone, and it wasn't a rock. It was a wooden box. Curiosity, as it always does, got the better of him. He dug and dug until he had unearthed a strange, unmarked coffin. With a trembling whimper, he pried it open. Inside was one of the missing townspeople, and the sight made Courage's fur stand on end. The person was grinning, a wide, unnatural, ear-to-ear smile. But that wasn't the most horrifying part. Their teeth. They were glowing. A faint, eerie, phosphorescent light pulsed from every single tooth, illuminating the inside of the coffin with a sickly green hue. Before Courage could even scream, a shadow fell over him. A low, raspy voice whispered right behind his ear, a voice that was both smooth and menacing. "Say cheese!" Courage spun around, his heart pounding in his chest. There he was, the dentist, the boring soldier. His face was a blank mask, but his eyes held a terrifying intensity. He held a dental mirror in one hand, and it glinted in the sunlight. The world started to spin for Courage. That ghoulish, glowing smile from the coffin, the dentist's chilling whisper. It was all too much. The poor dog fainted, collapsing right there in the dirt. When Courage finally woke up, the sun was setting, casting long, spooky shadows across the yard. The coffin was gone. The hole was filled in, as if it had never been there. Shaking, he scrambled back inside the farmhouse, desperate for the safety of Muriel's lap. He felt a strange stiffness in his own face, a weird ache in his jaw. He tried to shake it off, telling himself it was just a bad dream. He scurried into the bathroom, hoping a splash of water would clear his head. He looked up at his reflection in the mirror and let out a sound he had never made before, a silent, horrified gasp. Staring back at him was his own terrified face, but with one horrifying difference. He was smiling. A perfect, flawless, toothy grin stretched across his muzzle, and he couldn't stop. He tried to frown, to whimper, to return his mouth to its usual worried pout, but the smile was plastered on his face, unmoving and permanent. Then he saw it. As the bathroom light flickered, his new, perfect teeth began to emit a soft, ghostly glow, the very same eerie green light he had seen in the graveyard. His reflection seemed to mock him, a perfect smile that would never, ever go away. He was now one of them. He had received the gift of a perfect smile from the dentist of doom, a permanent grin to mask the terror he felt inside. From that day on, every time he saw his reflection, he wasn't just looking at himself. He was looking at the dentist's handiwork, a chilling reminder to always, always be afraid of those who promise perfection. So, what do you think? Is this one of the creepiest backstories for a Courage the Cowardly Dog villain? The idea of a smile, something that should be so joyful, being turned into a permanent mask of horror, is just bone-chilling. It makes you wonder what other dark secrets are buried in the middle of nowhere. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What's the scariest villain from the show in your opinion? In the dead quiet of our town, there's a time you learn to fear. It's not midnight, not the witching hour you read about in stories. It's 3:03 a.m. Precisely. Every single night, that's when the parade begins. Down Main Street, under the hum of the old streetlights, he comes. We call him the boring soldier. He doesn't look like much, just a toy soldier come to life with a painted-on smile that never reaches his glass eyes. But behind him, an army follows. And they're the ones you should be afraid of, because they used to be us. They march in perfect, unnerving synchrony, their faces blank, their movements stiff, and they sing. Oh, they sing. It's a lullaby, but it's all wrong. It's off-key, a discordant, droning tune that seeps through your walls, under your door and right into your ears. It promises sleep, a deep and final rest, and it delivers. The moment that song wraps around you, your eyes get heavy, your limbs turn to lead, and you're gone. But this isn't the kind of sleep you wake up from in your own bed. No, when you wake up, you're on your feet. You're on Main Street. The cold asphalt is beneath your new stiff boots. You're marching. You're one of them. The lullaby isn't just a song anymore. It's coming from your own throat, another broken note in the dreadful chorus. My name is Courage. I know. A funny name for someone who spent most of his life being scared. But maybe my parents knew something I didn't. I've seen it happen. I saw Mrs. Gable from the bakery, her kind face now a vacant mask, her hands that once dusted flour on everything now swinging stiffly at her sides. I saw young Timmy, who used to race his bike down this very street, now marching with a blank stare, his baseball cap replaced by a soldier's helmet. They're all gone, lost to the parade. One by one, the houses on my street have gone dark and silent. I'm one of the last ones left. And I've decided I'm not going to be next. I can't be. Someone has to remember them as they were. So, I made a plan. A desperate one. For the last 3 nights, sleep has been my enemy. I've armed myself with the brightest flashlight I could find, a beam of light against the encroaching dark. I've brewed coffee so strong it could probably strip paint. I sit by my window, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. And I wait. The first night was the hardest. The coffee made me jittery, and every creak of the old house sounded like a marching boot. At 3:03 a.m. the singing started. It was faint at first, then it grew louder, a wave of sound washing over the silent town. I squeezed the flashlight, its plastic groaning in my hand. The light felt like a shield. I pointed it at my face, the bright glare stinging my eyes, forcing them to stay open. I watched them pass, a river of lost souls, and I didn't sleep. The second night, exhaustion was a physical weight. My eyelids felt like sandpaper. The lullaby seemed sweeter this time, more persuasive. It whispered of soft pillows and dreamless peace. My head nodded once, twice. I jolted awake, my heart hammering. I bit my lip until I tasted iron. The sharp pain, a welcome anchor to reality. I stared into the beam of my flashlight, focusing on the dust motes dancing in the light, anything to keep my mind from drifting. And again, I watched the parade march into the darkness. By the third night, I was a ghost myself. The world had taken on a blurry, unreal quality. I was running on pure adrenaline and fear. I knew I couldn't last another night like this. My body was screaming for rest. I clutched my flashlight like a holy relic, its batteries starting to flicker and fade. The parade began, and the song was almost a comfort, a familiar horror. I saw a new face in the line. Mr. Henderson, the librarian. His glasses were gone. He was just marching. My grip on the flashlight loosened. My head slumped forward, just for a second. That's all it took. I didn't fall asleep, not really. It was more like falling into something, a dream. But this dream was cold and grey. I felt the phantom weight of heavy boots on my feet. I saw the back of the person in front of me, marching, always marching. I saw the boring soldier at the head of the line, his painted smile a chilling beacon in an endless swirling fog. The lullaby was all around me, inside me, a constant monotonous hum. The smiles of the marchers were cold, empty invitations to join the void. A jolt, a sudden sharp awakening. But I wasn't in my chair. I wasn't by the window. I was standing. The grey light of dawn was filtering through the blinds, but it felt different, colder. Something was in my hand. It wasn't my flashlight. It was heavy, wooden, with a cold, serrated edge, a saw. I looked down. My familiar pajamas were gone. Instead, I wore a stiff, grey uniform. On my head, a simple blue cap was pulled down low. I looked in the hall mirror. and my own reflection was a stranger. My face was pale, my eyes wide but empty. A stranger who looked just like me. A sound echoed from far away, a clock tower striking the hour. It wasn't 3:03 a.m. anymore, it was evening. I had lost an entire day. Then a new sound, a quiet melody coming from my own lips. It was tuneless, off-key, a lullaby. It wasn't a conscious choice, it was just happening. The song of the parade was now my song. Panic, cold and sharp, finally pierced through the fog. I clapped a hand over my mouth, stifling the sound. What was happening to me? Was it too late? Had I already joined them even while I was awake? My mind raced, desperately searching for an answer, a loophole. The dream, the marching, the saw. Why a saw? Soldiers carry rifles, not tools. I looked at the saw in my hand, then at the rows of identical houses outside my window. Identical, silent houses filled with people who were once my neighbors. And then an idea sparked, a wild, terrifying idea. The boring soldier leads an army. But what is an army of toy soldiers made of? They aren't born. They're made, carved, assembled. I looked at the saw again, and its purpose became horrifyingly clear. The song puts you to sleep. The dream shows you your new reality. And when you wake up, you have your new job. You're not just a marcher, you're a recruiter. You're a craftsman. My job wasn't just to sing. It was to help the army grow, to turn my neighbors, my friends, into more empty vessels for the parade. The thought was so vile it made me physically sick. No, I wouldn't do it. I dropped the saw and it clattered on the floorboards with a deafening noise. I had to fight it. The lullaby was still a faint hum in the back of my mind, a pull, a command. I had to find a different song, a song that was mine. I stumbled through my house, my mind a battlefield. The uniform felt like a cage. I remembered my mom singing in the kitchen while she cooked. It was a simple, cheerful folk song about a sunny morning. I didn't remember all the words, but I remembered the feeling, the warmth, the love. I forced the tune from my lips. It was shaky, cracked. It fought against the cold lullaby in my head. "You are my sunshine," I croaked, the words feeling alien and powerful at the same time. My only sunshine. I sang it louder, my voice gaining strength. I sang it to the empty rooms, to the photos on the wall, to the memories of everyone who was gone. I sang for Mrs. Gable's warm bread, for Timmy's laughter, for Mr. Henderson's quiet kindness. I sang for myself. The humming in my head faltered. The cold fog seemed to recede, just a little. The blue cap on my head suddenly felt ridiculous. The stiff uniform itchy and wrong. I tore it off, throwing it in a heap on the floor with the saw. I know the night is coming. I know that at 3:03 a.m. the parade will march again. But this time, I have a new weapon. It's not a flashlight and it's not coffee. It's a song. My song. I don't know if I can stop the parade. I don't know if I can save anyone else. But I know I can save myself. I will sit by my window tonight. And when their cold lullaby begins, I will sing back. I will sing of sunshine and hope. I will sing until my voice is raw. I will be a single defiant note of warmth against their cold, empty chorus. And I will not march.